Welcome to Fluent Podcast. We're diving into our English learning podcast playlist today, and we're tackling something I think, well, pretty much everyone experiences, especially with language learning: how to stay calm under pressure in English. Ooh. You know that feeling, don't you? That moment. You've studied for ages, practiced those phrases, you feel totally ready, and then your mind just freezes up when it actually counts.
Oh, yeah.
Like an athlete missing that vital shot, or drawing a blank in an exam, or maybe it's that big presentation in English and you stumble over words you know.
Definitely.
It's that experience, messing up something you probably should have nailed. People call it choking, right? We've all seen it, probably felt it too.
Absolutely.
So what's really going on inside our heads then? And maybe more importantly, how do we stop it? How can we stay calm, especially when we're trying to get our point across in English?
Yeah, you've hit on those moments perfectly. They're so frustrating, aren't they? That gap between what you know you can do and what actually comes out under pressure. Well, our sources today have some really clear insights and practical advice, too. We're going to unpack the why behind it all, give you some useful English phrases for talking about it, and then some solid strategies to help you become more, well, the material calls it clutch.
Okay, clutch. I like that. Let's unpack these ideas then, maybe starting with the terms, give you some phrases. So our sources make this interesting distinction between choking and being clutch. Choking basically is when you freeze up or you bottle it, you panic.
You let the pressure get to you.
Exactly. It's messing up when you probably should have nailed it. So maybe you're in an important English chat and that perfect phrase, it's right there, but it just disappears. That's choking.
Right. You knew it, but the pressure just blocked it.
Yeah.
And then the opposite is being clutch. That means you keep it together. You tackle the big moment.
Hit the game-winning shot.
Yeah.
Literally or, metaphorically.
Precisely. Performing at your best when it matters most. Think of someone maybe giving a spontaneous English presentation and just nailing every point, even with no prep. That's clutch. So today, we're going into why choking happens and, crucially, how we can all learn to be a bit more clutch.
Okay, but why does it happen so often? These skills we have, sometimes they just vanish when the spotlight's on. Why?
Well, it's complex, obviously, but the sources really point towards one core issue: a breakdown in focus. They talk about two main theories here. The first one's called distraction theories. Basically, your performance tanks when your mind is just preoccupied with worries, doubts, or fears. Instead of focusing on the task, like speaking English clearly,
Right.
your brain's off worrying about other stuff.
So, like, if I'm prepping for an English job interview and I'm thinking, oh no, is my grammar okay? Do I sound weird? What if I forget that word?
Yeah.
All that anxiety is literally taking up brain space I need for, actually speaking.
Exactly that. Relevant and irrelevant thoughts are basically competing for attention, and your brain only has so much bandwidth, right? This really hits your working memory hard. Think of working memory as your brain's temporary notepad, where you juggle information actively. It's vital for anything complex. There are studies like showing uni students doing much worse on tricky math problems when they're stressed, even if they could do easier ones fine. Their working memory was just jammed with worry.
Okay, that makes sense. So less space for the actual task. What's the other theory?
The second group is explicit monitoring theories. This suggests that pressure can actually make people overanalyze the task at hand. So for skills that are normally automatic things you do without thinking, like, I don't know, riding a bike or speaking your first language.
Rip in your shoes.
Yeah, exactly. When you suddenly start thinking about it as precise mechanics, it actually messes things up. It interferes. Imagine a pro golfer suddenly thinking consciously about every tiny muscle in their swing instead of just swinging. That overanalysis breaks the automatic flow.
So your brain gets in its own way. Either it's too busy worrying about other things, or it's focusing too hard on the tiny details instead of the big picture.
You've nailed it, and this often leads to what's called overarousal. And just to be clear, this isn't sexual arousal we're talking about.
Right, important distinction.
It's being stimulated both physically and mentally, but like too much, way past the helpful point. In those high-stakes moments, we tend to overthink, don't we? And that overthinking acts like a false alarm for your body. It triggers your sympathetic nervous system, your fight-or-flight mode. Now, a little bit of that can be good, gets you energized, but overthinking often turns the dial way up. Heart pounds, blood rushes.
Yeah, that feeling, the rush of blood to the head, feeling anxious or nauseous, your heart's thumping away. And that's when your attention becomes divided, right? Instead of focusing on, say, getting those English words out clearly, you're suddenly aware of your sweaty palms or how tight your chest feels.
Precisely. You can't access that skill or remember that word because your brain's resources are split, dealing with the panic and the task. There's this concept, the inverted U-curve of arousal and performance, which explains it really well. Think of it like this. If you're under-aroused, you're just bored and a bit meh. Performance suffers because you're not engaged, like a tennis player just not bothering to run for a ball.
Okay, low energy, low performance.
Right. But then if you slide too far the other way, you become over-aroused. That's when you're panicky, anxious, and overstressed.
Hmm.
Now, that same tennis player might be trying too hard, super tense, just smashing balls into the net, all frantic energy, no control.
Too much energy, also low performance.
Exactly. The sweet spot is in the middle, optimal arousal. The sources call it the Goldilocks zone. Not too little, not too much. That's when you're in the zone. You can concentrate, you feel like you have full control over your mind and body.
Yeah.
You're energized, but focused.
Okay, the Goldilocks zone. That's the goal. This whole explanation really shifts things from just knowing why we choke to figuring out how to actually control it. So where do we start? What's the first practical thing you can do when you feel that pressure building, maybe before speaking English?
Well, the first, and maybe the simplest, strategy is deep breathing. Seriously, just taking slow, deep breaths activates your parasympathetic nervous system. That's your body's rest and digest system, the opposite of fight or flight. It physically lowers your heart rate, reduces tension. Your brain gets the signal, okay, things are calming down. It helps nudge yourself back into that Goldilocks zone.
And it's pretty immediate, isn't it? Like next time you feel that anxiety spike before you have to speak English, you can just consciously think, okay, focus on my breathing, or even say, I need to take a deep breath. Just doing that can create a bit of mental space, help you calm down.
It absolutely can. It breaks the cycle. The second strategy is using relaxing self-talk. Our minds are buzzing constantly, right? With like 50 thoughts per minute, apparently. Saying calming things aloud, or even just firmly in your head, helps cut through that noise and focus your attention. You're actively guiding your inner voice.
That sounds really useful. One phrase the source suggests is powerful. So you could say, it's just a test. Or for English learners, maybe, it's just talking to people. Or it's just a conversation.
Yeah.
It kind of takes the sting out the tail, doesn't it? Helps you dial things back a notch, get some perspective. Like if you're nervous about an English speaking exam, telling yourself it's just an opportunity to practice totally reframes it from a threat to, well, just practice.
Exactly. Which leads nicely into the third strategy. Mind your thoughts and see it as a challenge. Being calm isn't really about the situation itself. It's about where we come from when things come our way. The key is, don't make the situation worse than it actually is with your own pressurizing thoughts.
That's a really key distinction. Perceiving something as a challenge versus a threat. The people who thrive under pressure, they seem to naturally attach a label that literally makes them see it as a challenge. It changes their whole response.
It really does. Seeing it as a challenge is like a call to action. It tells your body, okay, let's step up and deal with this, instead of triggering the fear response, the survival brain kicking in. So, faced with tricky English grammar, instead of feeling threatened, you're activating your problem-solving skills.
So you can actively tell yourself, okay, this difficult conversation is a challenge I can handle, or I'm ready to step up and figure this out. That actually changes how you feel and react physically, too.
It does. Strategy number 4 is practice acceptance. This one's quite profound. The source says, problems in life is not what creates inner suffering. What creates inner suffering is non-acceptance to those circumstances. Fighting reality just makes you feel stressed, angry, frustrated.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's that feeling of this shouldn't be happening that creates all the internal friction and stress. Accepting what is happening right now as it's unfolding doesn't mean liking it or giving up. It just stops the fight, frees you up to actually deal with it.
There's a great quote. What you resist will persist, but what you befriend, you transcend. So instead of fighting the fact you're struggling with a word, maybe try thinking, okay, I accept this situation as it is right now, or this is what's happening and I can deal with it. It diffuses the stress.
Okay, acceptance. Powerful. What's next?
Number 5 sounds very relevant for language learners.
Yes, number 5, practice under stressful conditions. Basically, you need to get used to the feeling. Practice under stressful conditions helps you become accustomed to pressure. They mentioned a study with dart players. The ones who practiced while stressed actually did better later on when they felt anxious, compared to those who only practiced when calm.
So for learning English, this means deliberately putting yourself in slightly scary situations. Pretty much. Don't always avoid the challenge. Maybe try ordering food in English, even if it feels awkward. Join that group chat. Talk to that native speaker with a fast accent. The more you do it, the less scary that feeling of pressure becomes. You learn to function with it.
Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, essentially. Okay, number 6.
Pre-performance routines. These are huge. Short rituals can lead to more consistent and accurate performance under pressure. It could be anything simple, taking a few deep breaths, maybe repeating a cue word to yourself, or even like a rhythmic sequence of movements, like bouncing on your toes, whatever works.
So it creates a sense of control and predictability before you jump in. Like before an important English call, you could take 2 slow breaths and maybe whisper your cue word, like focus or flow.
Exactly. It signals to your brain, okay, game time, but we're prepared. It anchors you.
Good one. What's number 7?
Number 7 is about external focus on the ultimate goal. Focus on what you want to achieve, the ultimate goal, not how you're doing it moment to moment. The internal focus on mechanics. Remember the golfers. Focusing on the ball's flight path worked better than focusing on their arm swing.
Right. So when speaking English, focus on getting your message across, connecting with the other person. That's the goal, not on whether every single verb tense is perfect.
Precisely. Aim for clear communication, not grammatical perfection. Keep your eye on the bigger picture, expressing yourself. Don't get lost in the weeds.
Okay, great advice. And the last one, number 8.
Number 8 is summed up beautifully. What you practice, you become. The source puts it starkly. The size of the problem is never the problem. The real problem is actually the size of you in relation to the problem. If you constantly practice shying away from difficult English situations, you'll just keep feeling shy. But champions, they put themselves in these situations over and over again. They build their capacity.
Wow. So it really is about growth. If you want to handle tough English moments, you have to actually handle them, face it head on, and continue to grow yourself.
Absolutely. There's that Rumi quote mentioned. How do you expect yourself to be polished if you're irritated by every single rub? You need the friction to get stronger. Embrace those awkward moments when you're searching for a word or you don't understand someone. See them as the rubbing that polishes your skills. Every time you face it, you grow.
Don't fear the rub.
Yeah.
I like that. That difficulty is actually where the learning happens.
Exactly. And a final thought here, just for perspective. Don't sweat the small stuff, and remember it's all the small stuff. Keep things in perspective. What feels huge now might seem small later, especially with a calmer mindset.
Okay, so just to quickly recap, we've talked about deep breathing to calm down physically, using relaxing self-talk, reframing things as challenges, practicing acceptance, deliberately practicing under pressure, using routines, focusing externally.
Yeah, quite a toolkit.
It really is. These are all practical ways you can become more clutch, especially when you need to speak English and the pressure's on.
And remember, honestly, life is its most exciting when we put ourselves in these situations. They really are opportunities to win and succeed. And hey, even when you don't quite win, those are the greatest experiences to learn and grow from. The more you step into that pressure zone, the more likely you are to come out on top. You're essentially weighting the coin in your favor towards being clutch. You build resilience with every attempt.
That's a fantastic way to end. So as you go about your week listening to this, think about just one thing from today, one phrase maybe, or one technique. Don't just nod along, actually plan to use it. Next time you feel that pressure creeping in when you need to speak English, try that deep breath or tell yourself it's just an opportunity. What's the one strategy you are going to try next to become a little more clutch? Think about it.